Welcome back to the 25 Days of Flows, the Power Automate Advent Calendar. So, as we continue this series, I do want to let you know that from days 20 to 25 could be considered intermediate to advanced flows. So, those of you that are brand new beginners to flow, I suggest you start by watching days 1 through 19 and then come back to days 20 and to 25. And it will just help you have a good, strong foundation for some of these more advanced topics. Okay, so what are we going to cover today? Today, we're going to cover getting a daily NASA image to our email. And why this is an interesting thing to do is not only because we appreciate being educated by NASA, but also because it helps us understand how we can use connectors that are not included in the Power Platform connector. So we are heading towards 300 out-of-the-box connectors, but there are still a whole bunch of things, thousands of things that have not been included in that out-of-the-box connector story. Does that mean you can't use them? Of course not. It means you need to know a little bit about how to handle an API that is not built in. So we're going to talk about that today and let you get started doing something that maybe is unusual, okay? So today we're going to use the NASA API, Application Protocol Interface, I think it stands for. But we're also going to use some of our standard and premium connectors. So we're going to learn about using these different APIs that are out there in order to get a daily photo from NASA. And I think this is a great thing. I actually am passionate about science and everything that has to do with study of the stars. And I hope you are too, because this is a good thing to have in your inbox so that you learn about the universe little by little every day. So the three standard connectors I'm going to use is Schedule, Outlook, Office 365. I will also show you the option for using Mail. Both work. Office 365 users, which is where I get all my profile information. And finally, we have one premium connector, and that is HTTP. And as you get to work with custom APIs, you will see why HTTP is premium. There is just so many opportunities and so much value packed into that one connector that it's really hard to put a price on it. Okay, so it means that you can do things that normally you would have to create a Swagger file for, but you'll be able to do them just using this connector if you just understand the few things we're going to talk about today. All right, so let's head back, and what we're going to start with is, where did I get this story from? So you can do some research. I'm just going to minimize this screen a little bit so I can get to this thing. Okay, so you can do some research on what APIs are out there in the world. There are a lot of them, okay? This one I really liked. It is the NASA APIs. And so NASA plans to offer us many different things. And so you can just go here, and this link will be in the flow details as well as in the description. But you'll see that they have quite a few APIs that you can use like right away. Want to know what asteroids are coming at us? Check that out. Want to know what our NASA image and video library is? Check that out. So lots of different APIs under this. And I think what you have to recognize as you're using these APIs is you usually have to sign up. Sometimes they're free and sometimes they aren't. But you usually have to sign up to generate an API key. And each key, which is just a long number, has its own rules as to how you can use it. So you have to take a minute or two and just, after you find the API that you like, then you'll have to go and check out what are the limitations on the API itself. And usually if you click around for API documentation, you will find some API documentation that will kind of tell you everything you need to know. So what is everything you need to know? Well, thing number one is you need to know what the endpoints are. What is the URI, or the API endpoint looks like a URL? What do you have to use to make requests to that API? And so you have to find that, where do I start, and so that's the first thing you'll get. You do have a limit to how many requests you can make per hour, but I don't know who amongst us might be making 1,000 requests to NASA an hour, but that's a lot of requests. I don't think we need that. If you're doing a demo, you have 30 requests per IP address per hour. So imagine it like per computer, you have 30 requests, right, per hour. That's still a lot, right? Daily limit is 50. Okay. So what's interesting is we're going to make one request on this one in order to get the daily photo. All right. So I will put the link to the page you need to go to and how you need to learn about this in the description as well. All right. So let's go back to Flow. And I've already opened this flow up so we can look at it closely. This is the daily NASA image for day 20. It starts with a reoccurrence because you're going to have your flow be delivered to your email every day. It has an Office 365 users connection, which has no configuration, just add it. And that's just going to get us the profile information so that we'll have an email address, right? And then finally, this is the piece that you will get off of that site. You will get this URL right here. You can see my key. If you want to use it, you're welcome to use it until it blocks you. Basically, you have this key, this URL here. So let's just put that in Notepad so you can see it better. I think my PowerPoint is running and it just doesn't let me get to my other software. Okay, so we're going to go Notepad, and I'm just going to put this in here so you can see it better. So https://api.nasa.gov, then you've got planetary, then you've got a pod, and then you have the API key, and you have to have equal, and then you have to go get your API key and put it after the equal sign. Okay, and that is all you need for that HTTP action. The method is get. So if you have those two things, you're good. Okay, then I parse the JSON, and I'm going to show you how I did that so you'll know. And then finally, I send an email. Okay, now my email is pretty simple. It just says today's NASA folder and the date. And then I use the send an email and I use the Outlook one. In this case, I'm only having the Outlook one go if the previous one fails or times out. But really, it's just for demo purposes. Most of the time, I don't need to do both. But I figure I wanted to get both in your download so that you could see that it's not any different. I tend to recommend that people stick with Office 365 for facilitating authentication, but you can use whichever one works best for you. And I have mail as the default because that's the one that's simpler. Okay, and don't need any advanced options, right? So I use the Office 365 profile to get the date, get the email. And then you'll notice in here, I've used HTML formatting for my email. It just says, here is today's NASA photo. And then it has the API JSON will give you an HD URL, which is the URL of the high def photo. And I'm sizing that high def photo to 250. And then I have a link to it being built with the URL and then the title of the image and then the explanation of the image. That way we can learn something too. All right. I don't have any advanced options going on here. All right. So now let's talk about this parsing JSON and why I did it. Okay. So after I got this back, let's just put a compose right here. Because you remember flows, so Power Automate, the reason it used to be called flow and that why these are flows is because data flows down from the top, actions before down. And so when I got back my body of my HTTP request, I got back three things: body, headers, and status code. I wanted this more broken down for my email. I wanted to be able to pull out different components of the body specifically. So I parsed the JSON of the body. And let me just show you how I did that. And because I parsed the JSON, and it really does mean what it says. Parse meaning to separate in some way, to break down, and JSON being the code that we're breaking down, the code that resulted from this HTTP. As a result of parsing JSON, if you look at when I go under that and hit compose, you'll notice that I get many more things because now we've taken that body and we've parsed it to give us the date the picture was released, the explanation about the picture, the URL for the picture, the type of the picture, the service version of the picture, the title of the picture, and the URL of the picture. Okay? But I got all of this because I did a parse JSON. And so I'm just going to run this to test it. And then we're going to look at the parse JSON piece, which is the hardest piece. So I'm just going to hit save and test. Relatively simple in its nature. When it comes to using these custom APIs, it really is about, do you know what you need? And once you know what you need, it's easy peasy. But until you know what you need, it's a little bit not so easy peasy. Okay, so now this ran. We're going to go look at this in my mail first. That's not it. So we'll give it a minute to come through. And let's just look at that code run here. So this actually went to this address. So we did get an email. We'll just go back and look. Sometimes it may take a while for the Exchange server to show it up. All right, so when we got this back, we got this body right here. This is the body. Yep, that's all there is, okay? Now I'm going to parse this body so right now you saw that I only got body and something else, but I want to get this URL out so I can use it in my dynamic content. I also want to get the title and I also want to get the explanation. So I need to parse it. So basically all I did was to parse it was copy this information into the parse JSON action. FYI, you cannot save parse JSON without its schema. So run the flow up until this point, and then you'll be able to get that body, and then you'll add the parse JSON action, and you'll push generate from sample, and you can paste in your JSON sample and hit done, and now it parses it. Okay, so that's all that is. Then after parsing it, you'll notice the difference in the dynamic tokens right away. So this is kind of like the reason why I parse is purely because I want more dynamic content and I'm not getting as much as I want otherwise. Okay, so that's the hardest part of this. Let's check our mail, see if we got our mail. We haven't gotten it yet. Let's see where we sent this. So I'm going to go edit and check. Where did this go? We're going to look at the run. So some people have asked me, I can't see mail. Mail just says dynamic content. How do I tell what mail that's going to? Well, when I run it, I can see who it went to. So it did go to my account. My Exchange server is being a little slow. We'll give it a couple more minutes and it should come through. What I can do in the meantime is see if Exchange server is faster without mail. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this. And I'm going to run it again with just the Outlook mail. Let's see if this comes through faster. All right, we'll just wait for this to finish its green. And this is only one call, so you don't have to worry about, the call to the API is only one. So you don't have to worry about this one getting beyond the limits of the API, all right? But each step in here is an API request, right? So keep that in mind as you think about your API limits. All right, let's go to mail and see if there it is. Okay, so there's today's NASA photo. I don't think I can make it any bigger for you. Let's try. There it is. It includes the title. It includes the title, well, the title that I gave it. The title underneath it is the hyperlink that I made, which includes a link. And then this is the actual explanation they give. And that's pretty cool because that looks like a GIF to me. It's actually moving. So this is, I can't pronounce all of this stuff, but this is a solar graph in time lapse. It's pretty awesome. And if you click on the link that I made, you will go to NASA itself to look at it. So really easy flow, but it does highlight what you need to know to use an API outside of our built-in connectors. And the key is that you have a URI, you know what method it is, and you have a key to be able to legally use it. All right. Some keys are free, some aren't. Sometimes keys are free up to a certain usage point, and then you pay more. Another thing that you may run into is the need for headers. And so you may notice that we used headers in my flow hacks for SharePoint, right? Sometimes you need headers. In this one, you don't. But the API documentation will always tell you what headers you need. So I'm wishing you a very happy holiday season, hoping that you will enjoy, amongst other things, the beautiful photography that NASA shares with us every day, and that you will give this level of custom APIs a chance because it's super easy. I'll be seeing you tomorrow at the next 25 Days of Flows, the Power Automate Advent Calendar.